Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, March 13th. It is the Judicial and Public Safety Committee meeting scheduled. I do not have quorum yet, but we'll go ahead and do roll call and carry on with presentations.
Gripe. Gums.
Gums remote.
Linder. Pepe.
Steppy here.
Williams. Leonard.
Leonard here.
Molina.
Molina present.
We do have Roth there.
And Roth is here.
Madam Chair, point of order. If we count Mr. Roth and have him vote on everything today, we do have a quorum. And Mr. Williams is here.
Oh, Mr. Williams saved a day.
Never mind.
And Mr. Roth, all right. Remote attendance request. I do have a request from Ms. Gums to attend remotely. Any opposition? Okay, Ms. Gums, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion for unanimous consent for the approval of minutes from February 13th, 2025.
Leonard, so moves.
Steppy seconds.
Okay, there's been a motion for unanimous consent. Any opposition? Hearing and seeing none, minutes are approved.
Yes.
Public comment. We have no one signed up for public comment. Monthly financials are on file. We will move on to KingCom. Good morning, Ms. Guthrie.
Good morning. Our monthly reports are on file. Just to kind of summarize our activities, we have a lot of projects going on, but our priority really remains focused on hiring right now. We're doing a number of public education events, job fairs. We have a telecommunicator and our operations manager attending a job fair today. As many events as we can do to kind of, sound the word that we are hiring and we can get some new trainees in the door. We did hire some new trainee on March 3rd. So we're excited to have her come aboard, but that remains our focus right now. I do have one slide that I want to share with the group this morning, if Blair could put that up. It's okay, thank you. Well, I am still working on our annual report and I hope to have that to the committee next month. I will follow up on just some budget conversation that I believe we had last month in terms of some of KingCom's expenses. It was discovered through our process here and with the finance department that we were missing a couple months of revenue. So now that revenue has been included, it's not as dramatic as it seemed when we were talking about it last month. I believe we were 14% over. So while our expenses did trend high, so did our revenue. Our revenue was at about 111%. So I'll get into that more when we do a presentation next month on our annual report. But this legislation, the slide that you see before you, is the 911 Saves Act. And on January 16th, Representatives Norma Torres and Brian Fitzpatrick reintroduced the 911 Saves Act to officially reclassify 911 telecommunicators as first responders. Currently, 911 telecommunicators are classified in the office and administrative support. So the same as an administrative assistant or a secretary. So this legislation has zero cost to the American taxpayers. It's just to recognize our team as first responders and acknowledge the crucial life-saving work that they perform every day. It grants us the recognition that 911 telecommunicators deserve for their vital contributions to public safety. As we talk about many of the events or, kind of high priority calls or big calls handled by the sheriff's office that OEM assists on, 911 telecommunicators are the first responders of all of those critical calls. So we're thrilled to have this back on the table as part of discussion. And I want to thank Ms. Gums for all the work that she's doing to advocate for 911 telecommunicators. But I just wanted to bring this to the committee's attention today.
Thank you, Ms. Guthrie. Any comments or questions? I see Ms. Gums has her hand up. Ms. Gums, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gums here. As you know, I was recently in Washington and I did have the opportunity to stop in and speak with Representative Torres about this piece of legislation. I have no shame in advocating for this, as I've been advocating for this for as long as I can remember. We were able to share some of our histories in our war stories together, me and the representative, and it looks like this might actually move. So from the NACO perspective, it is on a priority list, and we'll be putting it forth as one of our priorities as well.
Wonderful. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Guthrie, and then you have a resolution to introduce.
I do. Our resolution is to proclaim the week of April 13th through 19th National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week.
Okay, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve?
Gums will move.
Ms. Gums moves, Mr. Tepe seconds. Any questions or comments? Okay, may I please have roll call?
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Pepe,
Tepe, yes.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Molina.
And a yes. Okay, this passes on. Okay, we will move on to the agenda to emergency management.
Good morning. You have your reports in front of you. I just wanted to note, one, we had an incident this week. We were assisting with, there was a fire in West Dundee, apartment buildings. I think they're called Canterfield apartments. About 35 people and 5 pets were displaced. They're still out of their homes, but all have been taken care of and either moving to other apartments or many of them have renters insurance, so they're in hotels. But as if you remember, a couple of months back, we passed, or the board passed a resolution to store a Red Cross trailer here at the government center. And for this incident, that we've transported that up there. They have set up a shelter, even though no one's taking them up on it. They're kind of as a backup, but there's going to be a resource fair for those residents at the apartment complex Friday from 4 to 7 to see if any of them need anything. But we've been coordinating with them, and all of them seem to be in pretty good shape. So just wanted to pass that along. Beyond that, our calls are probably about average. December was a kind of a busier month, and then January was a little bit down, and February was again up. So we're probably trending about normal. And that's about all I have there for the general monthly report.
Okay, any questions? Mr. Tepe?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I want to point out that Scott came to my community this past month and put on a presentation for a group of people. He went on for an hour and a half and nobody left. Okay, he kept them engaged, involved, and really did an interesting job of explaining what OEM did. I'd invite anybody to take advantage of him in doing that. And we also have a couple of members that are going to be there in a few weeks doing the same thing for the same group. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tepe.
Yeah,
Ms. Gums? Ms. Gums, go ahead.
Thank you. I also want to highlight one other thing legislatively. I want to thank Scott for his hard work. We did discuss in legislative a bill that has unanimously passed through committee yesterday. That's to allow them to utilize their county vehicles to access the opticons, the things that the red lights. And without his hard work, I don't know that we would get this far. But I just want to thank him for his hard work on that. And he's been working with our lobbyist in step. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Scott. You have a resolution?
I do. So this is just a resolution to recognize April as National Volunteer Appreciation Month. And I'll note through the Health Committee, the Health Department is advancing a similar one. So when these all make it to the county board next month, they'll all be done together. I think we'll have a nice group picture. It'll be kind of nice to recognize all of our most active county volunteers all at once.
Okay, wonderful. May I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve the resolution?
Williams moves.
Mr.
Tepe
Williams
seconds.
moves, Mr. Tepe seconds. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing and seeing none, may I please have roll call?
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Pepe,
Tepe, yes.
Williams,
Williams, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Molina.
Molina, yes. Okay, this passes on.
And I have a FIRA presentation.
Go ahead, Scott.
So FIRA stands for Threat and Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment. It's kind of emergency management geek speak for we take a look at what's going on in the world and how that'll affect us. So we do this because it's mandated, but also it gives us good information for planning for the next year as we work on our emergency operations plan. So these are just a reminder of the state mandates that we're under, at least some of them. So I highlight, we are responsible for the unincorporated areas of the county, the unincorporated or the incorporated municipalities that have no established emergency management program, which is 13 of them, and then 12 that have established, as does. But as I'll show you in the next slide, most of them are kind of a part-time thing, and most of them do almost zero in mitigation and recovery. So this is just the agency or the cities on the left are the ones with established programs, and other than the highlighted ones who are accredited, you can see all the rest of them pretty much have a part-time staff like a police chief or a fire chief that oversee this. So they're kind of have limited capabilities. On the right are the ones with no program. So we serve them as if they're unincorporated. So the 4 phases of emergency management, we are really strong in preparedness and response. And of course, response involves more than just our agency. That is, the sheriff's office and the police departments and the fire departments. That is first responders, life-saving, things like that. Preparedness is all the planning and classes and things that we do to be prepared for that disaster. And mitigation recovery are things that we get to on a limited basis. So THIRA, as I mentioned, is required, helps us understand threats and hazards and how vulnerable we are. Essentially, it helps us identify what are the most important things to plan for. There's, I don't know how many, couple dozen hazards, and this kind of brings 5 of them to the front so that we can make plans for those. Our major findings are that we need to work with assisting access and functional needs populations. We don't have a great way of finding those people. So if there needed to be an evacuation, we don't have a great way of knowing where are the people that are in wheelchairs, where are the people with walkers, where are the people who have medical equipment that need help evacuating. But that's something, consequently, there is a bill that's been proposed to create a statewide registry of that. So we'll follow that, but that's something we have to look at going forward. And then building a long-term recovery group is something that statewide is a push, and as well as a better recovery plan. One of our areas of concern is sheltering operations. We have that Red Cross trailer that's here. It has 50 cots and associated blankets and things that go with them. But the real gap is the number of people available to run shelters. We might have about 50 people countywide that have been trained, including many of our volunteers. But when that call comes to open a shelter, you get, if I ask 50 people, I might get 5%, because it's a volunteer thing. So that's something that we have to look at building and having more people that can help with that. What we found is that for the smaller type tornadoes, like the EF 0s and 1s, they're small enough that there's not a ton of damage. And in most cases, there's been nobody that needed sheltering. Some people displaced from their homes, but they had places to go. That changes if those tornadoes hit a different part of the county where people are lower income, don't have insurance, don't have money to go to a hotel, things like that. And then the last one is we need to identify emergency action plans for the 36 dams, well, the ones that at least require it. So 8 of them are classified as significant hazard potential and 6 are high hazard potential. I was surprised to find out there's 36 dams in the county, a lot of them on streams and even some that hold back retention ponds and things. But it's one of those things that no one's really looked at in quite a long time. So that'll be one of our focuses, is to identify those plans. The owners of dams are responsible for doing those plans, but we don't know how, we don't have them, and we don't know how long it's been since they've been updated. So that's one of the other things we'll have to work on. So the process is essentially what could happen in Kane County, the likelihood, the effect on the citizens, as well as the county's ability to respond. Some things may be on there, not necessarily because we don't have the ability to respond well, but because it would be a huge impact. The types of disasters are natural, technological, and man-made. The THIRA team, we probably doubled the size of the team this year. We also did a survey to our first responder and emergency management partners, and so we've collected, I think, a lot more data than we did in the past, and I think it's given us a better result. So these are the top 5 vulnerabilities we identified. Cyber attack, which is more of a continuity operations planning issue for us. It's not necessarily saying that we're vulnerable to an attack succeeding. That's on IT to defend that, and I don't have any doubts that they're doing a great job there. This is more a result of if a attack like that succeeded and computer networks were down, how would we operate? And that's I think the thing that we have to look at. Of course, we always have severe weather and tornado, floods, and typically floods are what causes dams to fail, as we saw in some of the hurricanes in the southeast that caused some of that. And then hazardous materials are all over the road and on train lines. And then terrorism, this is more a result of a terrorism attack on the city of Chicago that might result in a lot of people fleeing the city and needing places to go. So these are just some of the things we do in preparedness, and this is a kind of a little bigger picture as to how these things relate to what we're already doing. The things in green there are things that are underway. We're working on the EOP, and we'll be working with the departments on the annexes that apply to them, as well as starting a COOP process. We're already doing a debris management plan, and we're almost done with the building emergency response guide, which is meant for staff to be available so they know what to do if there's an emergency in the building. Also in preparedness, so we're working on critical infrastructure data, identifying that and verifying it, collecting more information. We've been developing a GIS dashboard with the assistance of the GIS department. And then we're coordinate a temporary emergency shelter program that, as I mentioned before, I think we need to build. So recovery is one of our weaknesses, and the language at the top in quotes shall have a recovery plan that should include. That's the language in the new administrative code that is not yet passed, but it will likely pass. It's in the JCARS process at the moment. Probably be out by summertime. And what it says is should include a whole community partnership to include long-term recovery. And these are the things that they say you should be doing. We're already working on debris removal and we're working on shelters, but the ones in red are ones that we have very limited or no ability to do. One of the challenges is in a bigger disaster, bigger than EF 0 or 1, is when people start bringing donations. They're bringing clothes and shoes and things that they think people need. And that becomes a disaster within the disaster because someone has to manage that. And all the different sizes of clothes and all that have to be sorted and maintained. And that becomes a real challenge. And really the money is a better way to help with that, but we don't have a way to manage that. And then they also say that we should be working on permanent housing solutions, healthcare recovery, and economic revitalization, which some of those things, I don't even know how we do, but it's something I think we have to look at it. There are some ideas of what to do, but these are all big things that result when there's a larger disaster, because we know that when businesses and government shut down and critical services like hospitals and doctors' offices close, if they don't open up within about a month, they probably aren't reopening. And then that's just a cascading effect. Mitigation is the act of hardening for disasters. It's improving. We can't stop tornadoes, but we can improve our ability to withstand them. So that includes things like identifying areas at greatest risk of flooding, helping local governments, businesses, and critical services to withstand those by having the right plans in place. If they're critical infrastructure, having generators so they keep their power and things like that. Those are things that we can do with mitigation grants. And then, as I mentioned, the dam plans. So in the next several months, what I'm planning to do is, this is kind of an overview of the process, but next month, I'd like to come back with a scenario of a tornado more serious than the ones we've seen and take a look at what the impacts would be and what we are currently capable of doing but what the targets might need to be so we can talk about some of those gaps. So I think that will be instructive for everyone to understand what are we trying to accomplish and what are we able to do and what resources do we need in the future to do them. So that's the end of the THIRA presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Scott, any questions? Mr. Gripe, I'll acknowledge Mr. Gripe has joined us via remote. Mr. Gripe, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation, Scott. Thank you. Speaking of preparedness, I know you've been kind enough to have that Red Cross trailer on our property. If they needed to come and get it today, I don't know if they're responsible to keep it ready to roll or if we are, and just want to make sure that if somebody needs it, they could hook it up and go.
Absolutely. So the Red Cross maintains ownership of the trailer and the contents, and we've just been storing it for them. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, if you weren't here, you missed it, but that trailer has been deployed to West Dundee and is set up in a shelter, even though there's no one in it at the moment. In that instance, we coordinated with the Red Cross and they asked us if we would take it for them. So that we one of my volunteers transported it there, and then they met us there. So it could be either one. The Red Cross could come and pick it up and take it themselves, or we could transport it. And we happily agreed since we were able to. So that's kind of how that works. And it'll remain there until they're done with it. And then when they're done, it'll all get packed up again and brought back here.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gripe. Any other questions for Scott? Okay, thank you.
And
for
then the
presentation.
last thing I have, so, Mr. Gripe asked for some, a couple points each month. And so I just put them at the end here. So a few of the positive ones, I'm presenting at the IASMA conference in Springfield next month on building a strong volunteer program. I'm doing that along with a volunteer coordinator from Will County who also has a strong program. So we're excited about that. And I think it'll be a good little awareness at the statewide association for the good things that we're doing. Currently, volunteers are going great. In fact, this number has changed. I lost 2 in the past couple of days. So I have 54 volunteers, but we have 18 applicants for our next academy starting next month. So things are good there. And we're implementing EOC software that's going to digitize and streamline a lot of things we do that are manual processes, a lot of manual data entry, and that's going to improve communication. The negative there is, as everyone is aware, federal grants have been paused. For us, that effect, we have about an $85,000 a year, or at least this year, EMPG. That's a reimbursement for administrative expenses. So that's on hold. We just applied for a hazardous materials grant, and that's for a commodity flow study. So that's what that would do is analyze what are the hazardous materials that are coming through the county via the roads and rails and all that. So that's on hold. And then we were in the process of applying for a BRIC grant, which is that's a mitigation grant to help us write a new recovery plan. So all those things will be on hold until we find out what's going on with federal grants.
Okay, and I see Mr. Gripe has his hand up. You have a question?
Yeah, not a question, just a thank you, Scott. That's probably the best response to give the board a summary or the committee a summary of what's coming, what's not good. That's tremendous. I wish every department did this. Thank you.
And I took a liberty of having 3 positives instead of 2, but I couldn't narrow it down. All right, that's all I have today.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay, we will move on to the agenda to our Sheriff Adult Corrections.
Hello and good morning. First and foremost, on the sentiments of CANCOM, obviously they are the backbone of what we do. So again, thank you to Michelle and her team. Without them, obviously we cannot do our job accordingly. So again, with all the accolades that she is spouting out, that is the understatement of what they do. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. With that being said, our monthly reports are on file and that is it.
Okay, any questions for our sheriff? Okay, we'll move on to our coroner, and I think Coroner Silva is in training, but she has 2 of her top deputies here.
Good morning. Yes, Dr. Silva is in a mandatory training for coroners, so that's where she's at. I'm not sure she was going to try and join us. I don't know if she was able to. Our report is on file. However, I did want to mention, I would like to mention about the polar plunge that we were involved in and thank Mr. Gripe for joining us. We did raise as a department $21.90 for Special Olympics, and actually it was quite fun for us. Typically the things we do aren't fun, so we had a lot of fun doing that. And I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding our report.
Okay, any questions regarding the coroner's report? Okay, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Judiciary and Courts.
Good morning.
think this is on. Chief Judge Villa, I don't have much to report on from judiciary. The one thing is we are going to do though is I think it's kind of exciting. Is anyone familiar with what Law Day is? Law Day is a national day sponsored by the American Bar Association, came into vogue maybe in the early 70s, kind of slowly trickled out through different law schools and things of that nature. And it is now a really robust program that has a theme, downloadable materials, a proclamation. This year's theme is E Pluribus Unum, out of many, one. We are going to do that here in Kane County this year. We haven't really made a real splash with Law Day in the past. We've had some moot court competitions, things of that nature. But I went to one in McHenry County. It was okay. Lake County and DuPage County do pretty good events, and so I'm told that we should do this. It's really not that difficult. And what are we going to do? The simple thing is, because these are standardized, they've given us a really good theme for the year, which makes it real easy to ask high school students, sophomores and juniors, to submit essays on their thoughts of what that means. Law Day is really about the rule of law, and this year's theme is a really easy one, out of many, one. Most of them are interested in college applications and things of that nature, so they're properly motivated. And plus, to help them be motivated, the Kane County Bar Foundation has kindly agreed to provide money from their resources for cash awards for the winners. The way it's going to work is I believe there's 10 high schools, right? 10 high schools. We're going to receive the top 3 from each high school. We're going to let the high school counselors or whoever it is there judge those students' application or essays. All of them will be deemed finalists for our Law Day competition. And then we will sit down with a crack team of readers of essays and determine the top 3 juniors and top 3 sophomores. Each one of them will receive a cash award plus some really cool swag from a Law Day in Kane County here. It should be a really nice event. It's going to be smaller this year because like most things, I'm a procrastinator and started a little later than I should have. But next year, I think we're going to incorporate it into our moot court competition in a larger sort of footprint to really celebrate this issue of the rule of law in our community and get our community to know that they can engage with the court system in a way that's positive for them. On that note, we're going to actually do something in October. Is Pro Bono Day in October? I forgot. It's October. Our law librarian Hallie puts on a very thankless, I should say, pro bono celebration in October. It's nice. It's a sort of a grazing type luncheon. Anybody can come in as an open house during the middle of the day. I've gone the last 2 years, and it is woefully underattended, in my opinion, for the people who do as much service as the pro bono attorneys do. The other group that we don't really recognize, even though they are paid by the courts and by the parties, I should say, are guardian ad litems, who do a whole lot of heavy lifting for the court, go to houses and make home visits in areas and in situations which are really pretty uncomfortable for people who don't have the training in that area. But they provide a real service for us. So in October, we're going to have a sort of a banquet, a recognition banquet for them. We'll give you more opportunities to understand who that is and hopefully make some announcements of who those winners are come October, November. So that's pretty much all we have to let you know about right now. We have some projects that are in the works. Shockingly, our technology project is still in the work. I know everyone is surprised. We're told by the state it should be finished this month. It sounds like a recurring dream that I have, that it'll be finished this month. But we'll be able to tell you all about that and provide a proper presentation once it's actually completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Judge. Any questions for Chief Judge? Okay, thank you for being here. And then Jason?
Said really quick, just a quick acknowledgement. So it's mock trial season here in the judiciary. So we had high schoolers in March 1st for the mock trial competition. St. Charles East won that. And then the next weekend we had the college mock trials, which we had colleges from all over the country come in, and probably had about 700 people in the Judicial Center for that. So a couple of acknowledgements on that. None of those events get pulled off without court security. They're fantastic. We talk to Lloyd and Frank all the time about things that we have coming up, and the things they're able to do kind of on the fly are pretty great. So thank you guys for that. And building management, we could not pull the events off without them, and they're always willing to get people in there on the weekend to help us out with those. So they're great for the community. They're great for the 16th, and they're great events. So I just wanted to thank all those people.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, those sound like really great events. Next year, I hope to attend. We participated in moot court trials at college level. So it was always really, really interesting to learn and watch how these young people become, you know, they become attorneys for that short term of time. It's really great to watch. So thank you. Okay, we will move on to our state's attorney.
Hi, good morning. On behalf of State's Attorney Mosser, the office's reports are on file. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to receive them, address them if I can.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Brady? Okay, thank
Thanks.
you for being here. We'll move on to our public defender.
Good morning. Our reports are on file. As with CaneCom and Ms. Gums, we are also continuing to hire. It's still a very competitive environment. Yesterday on the Office of State Appellate Defender, there were 11 public defenders offices in the area that have posted for jobs. So it is still a competitive environment. The good news of it, though, is that we are branching out our searches. Generally, we used to get a lot of applicants from Northern Illinois University at proximity, of course, but we have started to attend a lot of job fairs in the city at schools there and have got a lot more applicants for there. So we are widening our pool. So that is a good thing. I will say I participated as a judge in the moot court competition. Not surprised to hear that St. Charles East won. I would have hired someone from that team today. She did an excellent job, but not quite there yet. So we'll keep her in mind. That's all I have for today.
Thank you. Any questions for our public defender? Okay, we will move on to court services.
Good morning. In honor of Mr. Gripe's request that we go through our monthly reports, I do want to highlight something in particular. For our monthly report, starting on page 213, you can see that we list a lot of training this month. And one of the things that we haven't talked about is that we have requirements for how much training each staff member has to get every single year. So on the probation side, ironically, it's easier than on the detention side. So for every single probation officer has to have minimally 20 to 30 hours, depending on where they're at in their cycle per year. On the detention side, it's 40 to 50 hours, depending on how new they are to the department. And so we list this out for you guys every single month so that you could see how busy we are doing all this training, because of course, then it takes staff to coordinate getting those people off the floor, because we still have to remain functionally staffed. So we have to find time to rotate people through. As I look through the rest of the report, everything is pretty stable from month to month. Our detention numbers are back to where they were a couple of years ago. So, I mean, that's good to see on the revenue side. It's sad to see on the crime side. If there's no questions on the report, I will introduce Emily Saylor, who is a director in the Court Services Department. She supervises a lot of the adult probation officers as well as the problem-solving courts, and she's going to give a brief presentation on our problem-solving courts.
Hello, good morning. We can go through, I think this is just a snapshot of the presentations coming up for court services. We're going to highlight the problem-solving courts today. So one of the things that I think has come out, there's been a lot of conversations recently regarding just kind of the budget and mandates and things like that. What I want to talk about is our 4 problem-solving courts, but highlight that these problem-solving courts take up about 5% of court services budgets. We're going to go through and talk a little bit about they are mandated by the state. We are required to run problem-solving courts for the county, and we're going to highlight just very high level all of our problem-solving courts that we have. But this is just a snapshot of where they fall within the court services budget. So Kane County has 4 problem-solving courts. We have our drug court, which is in its 25th year this year. We have our Veterans Court, Treatment Alternative Court, and then our DUI court. Fun fact, we are the first and only county currently that has 4 certified problem-solving courts. That is a huge testament to the work that we do here in Kane County. 2015, the state started requiring all courts and circuits to have standardized treatment courts. We were ahead of the game in our drug court and our mental health court. But since then, we have now, since 2015, we have our Veterans Court and our DUI court. One of the things that I want to highlight is that we don't just get to pick who comes into these courts. Not only do we identify individuals, but they have to want to be part of our courts. So we know a lot about addiction. Individuals need to want to come into the program. They're going to want to get the help that they need. if we can't force people in as much as sometimes we'd like to. So that's one of the things to take away. Applicants also need to be residents of Kane County. We can't just take anybody that comes in with charges here. They need to reside here to receive the resources that we can offer them. Treatment is mandatory. Oftentimes we know with addiction that people are unable or they're not willing to get into treatment. They want to kind of dictate that treatment themselves. One of the things for our problem solving courts is if you want to have the benefits of those programs and those resources, you have to want to be able to be in that treatment. And I think the thing that I really want to highlight the most is this team-based approach. Probation, we hear a lot about it. Our problem-solving courts are very unique in that it's not just one individual that's working with the client. We have a team of judicial partners that are working with our problem-solving courts. So you have the judiciary, state's attorney. Is it really loud? Judiciary, state's attorney, public defender, probation, our diagnostic center, our veterans treatment court, treatment providers. All of these individuals are experts in their area, and they sit around a table and they talk about each of the clients that are in our courts and really are looking at making those decisions to make sure that what they're doing for the clients is in the client's best effort or best interest. Our probation team, which is who I'm going to kind of highlight through the rest of this just breaks down our courts and our probation team. So our drug court is our largest court, and we have a coordinator, a probation supervisor, and 4 officers. Our vet court and DUI court team. So our vet court is our smallest court. However, we were able to capitalize on that with our DUI court. And so we have one coordinator that oversees both of those courts. And then we have 2 probation officers that are working in the DUI court. Our treatment alternative court, also our mental health court, has the coordinator and a probation officer. So as you're looking at the number of individuals in each of these courts, obviously we are able to coordinate the officers and the work that we're putting in for those. One of the things that we hear a lot about in presentations is, why do we do the work that we do within probation? And we're taking a look at what's going on in the community and making the efforts and making the changes in probation to assist the community. When we look at emergency rooms, so the health department put out a study on emergency room visits based on overdoses. And so you can kind of see here that it's older males, and we're seeing that same trend in our problem-solving courts with people coming in. And so the work that we're doing in our problem-solving courts essentially is to help attempt to lower the numbers that you're seeing here throughout. This is the slide where we talked about emergency room departments, and you can see for all drugs in comparison to the opioids. So again, we're looking at trends across all different areas to determine what do we need to do in our courts to help support the individuals that are here. Slide here is talking about the fatalities that come from opioids. So these are your opioid fatalities in comparison to the all drug fatalities that came out. And so this is from 2018 to 2022, and this came from the Kane County Health Department. So again, we're taking a look at what's coming out of other areas and other departments and figuring out what can we do, how do we help the individuals that we see through our courts so they don't become one of these statistics. I know a lot of times as we've gone through these presentations, we've talked a lot about risk. What I just want to highlight here and illustrate is that we know our problem-solving courts work. They have worked for years, and this is why they are a mandate. This is why they are required. In order for them to work effectively, we have to have the right people in the courts. And this risk distribution, high risk, high need, is who we need to have in our courts. These are individuals that are at risk to reoffend. These are individuals that are in the highest need of services. So if you look at that top graph there, that is our regular probation risk breakdown. About 90% of regular probation is classified as low to moderate risk, meaning that we can provide them referrals. We can give them some quick resources. They're going to do some phone check-ins. And for the most part, they are going to do what they need to do. The lower part of that graph is our problem-solving courts and our drug court as well. About 40% of our problem-solving courts are high risk and very high risk. So all that's telling us is the right people are in our courts. We're getting the people that we need, and we're providing the services to those individuals that need it most. Without these courts, these individuals would either be in the community without those sort of services, or unfortunately, they would be in custody somewhere. So when we talk about the work, right, and we hear this a lot, and our officers do so much day to day that I think goes unnoticed. And really what I want to highlight here is in the past year for 2024, there was over 5,000 home visits done. So again, these individuals are living in the community from our problem solving courts. We're going out to the homes. We're meeting with them. We're working with whatever's happening in that moment. We're doing risk assessments to make sure that we're getting the right people in. Treatment referrals are being made. We have weekly staffings that are taking place. They're working on goals. The ongoing crisis management, I can't even put into numbers. They have phones that are on, oftentimes I'm having conversations with our officers that say, you got to step away, you got to turn your phone off. They are there. They are providing that service to individuals, and we ask for help on a regular basis. And we reach out to people, and that is no different from the people that are in these courts. They are reaching out, they're trying to find out, how can I get help? What are those skills? And our officers are there answering those phone calls. Drug testing makes sense. We have about 9,000 drug tests that we did last year on our problem solving court participants alone. Again, some of that is to monitor for use of illicit substances. More importantly, we're also looking at medication management. So we are taking those drug tests and making sure that the individuals that are on medications are taking the medications as they were prescribed and aren't taking them over or under what they need to be taking. Throughout all of that, we're also running cognitive behavioral groups for our clients. All of our problem solving courts refer to those. And we're doing transports to inpatient facilities. So oftentimes our clients that come in have no one in the beginning. They don't have a good foundation of people to help them. And so we're the ones that are going to provide that transports to inpatient facilities to make sure that initial transfer to a treatment facility when the motivation is at its highest is we can get the person in and get them the services they need. So just a quick snapshot of all of our courts. Again, to the left, you're going to see when I talk about it being mandated, the statute is there for our Drug Treatment Court Act. So that's going to refer to our drug court and our DUI court that is required to have our problem solving courts. Mike Roman is our supervisor. And then there is our current drug court team. Quick highlight on our drug court. Was from our annual report for last year. These are just some trends that you're going to see. One interesting thing to note is we are seeing an increase in drug of choice being cocaine. So you're going to see that on the top right of that graph. One thing just to highlight to let you know is that when we talk about drug of choice, that is the initial drug of choice. That does not mean it is the only drug of choice. So when they come in, we're going to highlight their initial drug or their most used drug. And then there are secondary and sometimes tertiary drugs. We have our Veterans Court team here. Again, there's the statute there that a lot talks about our Veterans Treatment Court. And then we have our probation for Veterans Court, some trends here. One thing to highlight in this is that we are seeing an increase in Veterans Treatment Court referrals, which is great to see. For a long time, I think when we initiated, we were kind of stagnant. So we are seeing an increase over the last couple of years in our Veterans Treatment Court referrals. Also for here, drug of choice, you're going to be looking at alcohol and as the highest drug of choice. And we do see differences in each of our courts. Here's a quick snapshot of our treatment alternative court and the statute that goes with that. And of our current TAC participants, so each of our courts, our problem solving courts, are looking at some different variables that we take a look at. One thing to highlight with TAC is our prominent diagnosis. So the individuals that come into our treatment alternative court, each of them has an assessment and each of them looks to see what is that mental health diagnosis that they have. When you look at our active participants for TAC, 32%, this is that prominent, right? So this is that first diagnosis they have is bipolar. And then again, about 50%, you're looking at schizoaffective and schizophrenia when they come into their mental health court. So our officers are working with these individuals. Our treatment alternative court is really looking at medication management to ensure that they are taking the medications that are prescribed to them so they can continue to become active members of society. And then finally, we have our DUI court. This is our newest court. It was certified in 2023. At the current time, it has 46 participants. I do not have a lot of statistics on that, given that it's new, but I do believe in the future we'll be able to show some trends over time.
And I just want to emphasize that. So the problem-solving courts are for individuals who are committing crime in the community who also have one of these circumstances that these various courts specialize in. And so everything we do is around mitigating risk. We want to decrease the likelihood that they'll commit more crime. And that is the entire focus of what we do, which is why we work so much on treatment and containment and testing and truth verification to make sure that they're working the program the way they're supposed to be and that they're getting better.
Thank you. Great presentation. Chief Judge?
I'd like to make two observations here. One, I love going to the drug court graduations. If any of you have seen me there, I hope to see many of you there. Not only that, DUI court, treatment court, and veterans court. Can't make them all, but I try to make as many as possible. And the reason is simple. We don't do anything good in the court system. Everything we do has to deal with somebody has committed a crime, or a marriage is being broken up, or a business is a fight, or somebody got injured in a car crash or something like this. And these courts actually change lives for the positive. The other thing I'd like to suggest is that given that, you know, there is an austerity movement, at least realization in people's minds, I think it would be a good idea to highlight the amount of savings that these kinds of courts provide as an alternative to longtime failures of probation and certainly incarceration. It's a shockingly high amount of money that drug court saves. I mean, just in case Space Karen comes down here with his teenage, you know, people to look over your shoulder, it'd be nice to know how well you've done by saving this county money. Okay.
Well said, Chief Judge. Any other questions, Mr. Roth?
Roth here. I was going to ask the same question. You know, every time you go to the graduations, they talk about how much we're saving. I think if we had some numbers, I think it would be useful because it is saving us a lot of money and we should take credit for that. You know, you guys do a great. Okay. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gripe?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Chief Judge, I'll politely disagree with you about nothing good coming out of what you guys doing. That's all I've been hearing this morning is great stuff, good stuff, amazing stuff. So I know you were being modest, and it is a hard thing you guys do. But I was especially impressed with moral recognition, which frankly I had to, when I first saw it, I had to look it up. But you know, having that kind of effect to people's lives and all that you're doing, I think is just amazing here. I did have a question. I think it was back on page 233. You were talking about different kinds of drugs. I don't think I saw fentanyl listed as a, you know, one of the drugs. I'm sure it's there, but I was just curious where that fit in this mix.
So fentanyl, from a drug of choice standpoint, we're not seeing that. One of the drug tests that we do in one of those 9,000 that come from our problem-solving courts, it does test for fentanyl. And so we're going to see that as it comes in through the drug test, but we have not seen fentanyl currently as being a drug of choice to rise to the level that we're seeing in the testing.
I guess that's a good thing. Thank you, because it's terribly destructive. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gripe. Any other questions for our court services? Okay, great presentation. Thank you, Emily. Okay, we'll move on to our circuit clerk.
Good morning, everyone. My reports are on file, so if anybody has any questions, I would like to let you know we're down 3 deputy clerks in the court and office teams, so we're back to hiring again. We're going to have our pizza party because we are finally full staff, but that kind of went out the window. I also would like to publicly thank Chief Judge Villa for his comments at our presentation last month. It was phenomenal. I totally appreciate all of you do and all of that we do here in Judicial. We are a team and we keep talking about how we are a team. And I thought it was a great presentation. I appreciate everything that all of you have done, and that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for our circuit clerk? Okay, thanks for being here. Okay, we'll move on to our agenda. Any old business committee would like to bring up? Okay, any new business?
Madam Chair, Williams.
Mr. Williams?
We had a very positive meeting, so I don't want to be the Debbie Downer here today, but I remind everybody, we have a referendum on April 1st. We received an email from Ms. Hopkinson last night, which says out of our $138 million budget, 69% of that budget are the people in this room. And we're going to be $30 million in the deficit spending if this referendum doesn't pass. If it doesn't pass, we're going to have to ask everybody in this room to make some serious concessions and do a deep dive into their budget, because we're not going to have any money. So I think in our April meeting, we need to start triaging if this referendum doesn't pass. So I just want to put that on everybody's radar. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other new business or comments anybody from the committee would like to bring up? Okay, may I have a motion to place reports on file? Anyone?
I ask for unanimous consent.
Okay, Mr. Tuppy, request unanimous consent. Any opposition? Hearing and seeing none, reports are placed on file. We have no need for executive session. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Williams moves.
Mr. Williams moves.
Leonard seconds.
Mr. Leonard seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
You gave somebody your name.